Crash Bandicoot is a 3D platforming game and one of the first of its kind on the PlayStation 1 to be a fully 3D platformer. It was created by Jason Rubin and Andy Gavin, who were originally set up as Jam Software, but they later changed their name to Naughty Dog. After a few successes under the name Naughty Dog, Universal offered to move them out to their back lot to create a new video game. On the road trip over moving there is when the Orange Bandicoot was born. Jason and Andy used Sonic the Hedgehog as their main inspiration. They envisioned their game to be, if you took Sonic and put him in 3D, they had to visualize this because Sonic Adventure, the first 3D Sonic game, hadn't actually come out yet. Due to their visualizations, they actually called Crash Bandicoot 1 the Sonic's ass game. Yes, they actually called it that. They imagined the camera to be on a dolly like you'd see on Hollywood movie sets. They wanted the camera to move in and out instead of left and right like in traditional platformers. Drawing more inspiration from the blue blur, the two wanted their main character to be an animal. Unfortunately, Universal had their own ideas about what they wanted the character to be. They'd already printed material for Wuzzles, Willy, or Wuzzy the Wombat, and according to Jason Rubin, he was against it because
we dealt with a marketing department at Universal that had some very interesting ideas about where they wanted the character to go. Some of the names that they stuck on and actually printed up materials: Wuzzles the Wombat, Willy the Wombat, Wuzzy. I can tell you, any gamer in the United States that picked up a box with Wuzzy the Wombat and the corresponding goofy attitude character that would have come from that, it would have been an absolute disaster.
There is concept art by Universal on what a potential Wuzzy the Wombat would have looked like, but looking at the concept art now, I am very glad they went with the Bandicoot after Jason and Andy threatened to drop the project if they didn't get to make the main character a Bandicoot. Crash was revealed in 1996 at E3 and released later that year. It released in September in North America, November in Europe, and December in Japan. It was so popular while it was on display in E3, Shigeru Miyamoto himself tried it out. Yes, that's Shigeru Miyamoto. How many Shigeru Miyamotos do you know? They intended to make Crash Sony's unofficial gaming mascot, and Crash was a popular choice since it sold 6.82 million copies. When the game was in development, there were no 3D games to base itself off of. The only games that had 3D models were Sims and fighting games, and both of those had constrained cameras, which would be a terrible idea to put in a platformer. While in development of Crash 1, they filled the disc with useless code. This was A, to deter pirates, and B, to decrease the load time of the game. The outside of the disc actually spins faster than the inside of the disc, so they pushed all the code to the outside of the disc so that the load times would be faster. The story of Crash 1 is that the evil scientist Dr. Neo Cortex is using his Evolvo Ray to mutate an army of evil mutant animals to take over the world. When it comes to Crash's turn to go through the Evolvo Ray, a freak accident happens and Crash comes out an idiot instead of a weapon. While Crash is able to escape, his girlfriend is still imprisoned by Dr. Cortex, so Crash has to set out on a quest to save her. Gameplay of Crash 1 is very simple. You have a spin, you have a jump, and yeah, that's it. The spin and jump are used to kill enemies in your path and break the boxes. These boxes contain Wumpa Fruit, or life crates, but mainly Wumpa Fruit. The fruit carry the same purpose as Mario's coins or Sonic rings. If you collect 100, you get a life. If you break all the boxes in the level, or fulfill a specific condition, you get a gem. If you get all the gems, you'll unlock an alternate ending. There are also keys you can unlock by beating certain bonus levels. These keys will unlock an extra level in the game. Bonus levels are unlocked when you find 3 Tawna, Embryo, or Cortex tokens hidden through the level. These bonus levels are 2D platforming levels where you can die without losing a life, and are trial and error puzzle-esque levels. In most cases you can't break all the boxes your first run through a level, and you need to play the levels again after unlocking colored gems so that you can unlock an extra path, which added replay value to the game. While we're talking about the levels of Crash 1, it would be a good time to mention that during development there were no boxes to be found at all. The boxes were added because playtesters said the levels felt boring. With PS1 hardware they couldn't add any more enemies without decreasing the frame rate. So they created boxes for players to smash. They killed two birds with one stone, A, making the levels more interesting, and B, giving Crash a reason for his name since he crashed through the boxes. You progress from level to level after you beat one. You have to travel through many in-game islands, defeating the boss at the end of them to reach Dr. Cortex and his other animal henchmen to rescue your girlfriend Tawna Bandicoot, as I mentioned before. While the levels may be basic platformer, the bosses are actually quite unique. No two bosses are fought in the same way, as you can see by the footage on screen now. also helped by the fact that you can collect Aku Aku masks through the level. Aku Aku is a sentient mask who acts as a shield. If you collect 1, you get 1 free hit. If you collect 2, you're protected from 2 hits, and if you get 3, you get a brief moment of invincibility. After Crash 1 was released, they wanted to bring the game over to Japan. Sony told Naughty Dog that they had reservations about the character Crash Bandicoot. It wasn't going to be an easy process as finding new voice actors, translating the game into Japanese, and etc. The game was designed by Americans with Americans and Europeans in mind. It was going to take a whole redesign to bring Crash over to the East. They took a few minutes out of their lunch break one day to redesign Crash. They closed his mouth, removed his teeth, just a short while before the meeting happened. When they went in, they showed the Japanese marketing team their redesign and loved it. In December that year, the game came out in Japan and sold over 1 million units, and even inspiring a Japanese dance. The release of Crash 1 being such a success, you could tell Naughty Dog wanted to capitalize off this, and Universal was going to make them do it anyway. They started developing the second game immediately after the first one came out in America. Crash Bandicoot 2 released in November in 1997 in North America, released in December in the same year in Japan and Europe. This game was so much of a success that, when combined with the first game, the units sold reached a total of 5 million worldwide units. There's not as much in the open about Crash 2's development as there is for Crash Bandicoot 1's. Development started in October 1996. If you remember from when I was listening to Crash Bandicoot 1's release dates, that was before the game even released in Europe and Japan. The game started with a 13-month development period and a $2 million budget. Andy Gavin, one of the co-creators, created a brand new game engine for this game. It ran 3 times faster than the original game's engine. It could also handle 10 times the polygons of the first engine. Since this engine was 3 times faster, they didn't need the useless code that they put in Crash 1. This allowed them to put a lot more they did into Crash 2 than they ever could have in Crash 1. The place where Crash Bandicoot 2 shines is definitely Crash's moveset. The spin and jump were brought back with much better physics. Now he also has a slide, and a slide jump which gives him more distance, a crouch, a crawl, and a body slam which allows you to break iron-lined crates. The level design has also improved. Multiple paths return, new enemies, more gameplay segments which the fandom has called vehicle segments, like riding a polar bear or surfing. The way you access each level has also been changed. You now access each level through warp rooms. They allow you to tackle the levels in any order you want. After you beat all 5 levels, there's a boss room. There's more replay value as secrets and death routes, which you can only access by reaching them without dying, have been added to the game. Once you collect all the gems, you unlock a secret ending. The secret ending concludes a character arc of one of the former villains, Dr. Embryo. Speaking of endings, let's talk about this game's story. The story of Crash 2 takes place directly after the story of Crash Bandicoot 1. Cortex falls on his airship only to land in one of his power mines he built before Crash 1. Once there, he finds a relic known as the Power Crystal. He teams up with an old colleague, Dr. Engine. They create a machine that needs 25 more crystals to be powered. Not wanting to collect the crystals themselves, they trick Crash into doing it for them. So it's now up to Crash and whoa, who is this? What do you mean her name's Coco now? Like most people who played Crash Bandicoot 2 for the first time, you're probably wondering who this female Bandicoot is. After Crash Bandicoot 1 released, Universal felt her design was too suggestive for a child-friendly game. Universal asked Naughty Dog to replace her, and this is what Naughty Dog came up with. This is Coco Bandicoot. She is the younger sister of Crash Bandicoot and is the Tales of the Fox of their duo. Working together, they collected 25 crystals and 42 gems, and the true ending is the canonical ending of the game, which leads directly into Crash Bandicoot 3.
Honors?
Crash Bandicoot 3 was released in November 1998 in North America and December in Europe and Japan. Crash Bandicoot 3 sells 1 million units after its initial release. This brings the grand total up to 7.13 million units sold. Crash Bandicoot 3 was incredibly well received among its fans. Also, this is my favorite game, and since I'm so smart and have amazing taste in games, that means this is the best Crash game, no questions. I said no questions! Like Crash Bandicoot 2, not much was released on the development of this game, but I was able to find some stuff for you guys. Crash 3 was the hardest game the team had to develop. The main reason being the tight schedule. The tight schedule meant that levels for Crash 3 had to be finished within a week. For reference, that's half the time they had for the levels in Crash Bandicoot 2, as well as that the developers wanted to add it in more than they had in Crash Bandicoot 2. This is when the developers added in the death animations to soften the blow of kills. Almost every single way Crash or Coco could die has been animated in this game. Crash's moveset in this game has been more developed than it ever has been. Crash retains all his skills from Crash 2 except for the body slam. After each of the 5 bosses, you learn a new move like you would in Mega Man. You learn the body slam, the double jump, a death tornado spin, which is a spin that keeps you in the air for longer, a fruit bazooka, and speedy shoes. Where you access these bosses are through the Warp Room level select, which returns from Crash Bandicoot 2. Lets you tackle the levels in any order you want to, and after you beat all 5 and collect the crystal in them, you granted access to the boss. You beat the boss and then move on to the next Warp Room and do that 5 times over to beat the game. A lot more is added to the gameplay of Crash Bandicoot 3. The vehicle levels return with the new addition of motorbike racing and plane riding. For a lot of the vehicle levels, you'll let play as Coco, which gives her a lot more use in the story than she ever had. There are 25 crystals and 45 gems required for the true ending. Alright, anyone paying attention might have noticed this collectible, and I feel like I can't not talk about it any longer. These are called time relics. If you re-enter a level you have already beaten, you'll see this weird clock in the corner. Once you collect it, bam, your rubber fruit disappears, the box changes, and you better start running or you suck at life! But you know, no pressure. The story of Crash 3, like I said earlier, takes off after Crash Bandicoot 2's secret ending. Cortex airship gets shot down. Crash lands into an ancient temple, freeing an evil sentient mass known as Uka Uka, who is actually Aku Aku's brother. Apparently Uka Uka has been giving Cortex commands the whole time. Uka Uka is fed up with Cortex failing constantly, but since Cortex actually freed him, he's giving Cortex one last chance. They enlist the help of Dr. Entropy to gather crystals and gems that have been scattered throughout time. After Crash and Coco are briefed on the situation, they run off to stop Cortex and Uka Uka. The true ending of this game takes place right after you beat the final boss. Apparently the time machine that you use as a level select malfunctions. It sends Dr. Entropy, Dr. Cortex, and Uka Uka back in time to when they were babies. This is where Crash's series as a platformer temporarily hits pause.
Take over the world. Come on!
It is difficult to say what has happened to our enemies, but I doubt we will see them for a long time.
Naughty Dog had decided to part ways with Universal after Crash Bandicoot 3. The relationship got really rocky after Crash 3, but more on that later. The only problem was Sony wanted more Crash games, since, like Naughty Dog planned, Crash had become their unofficial mascot. The developers had nowhere near enough time left to make another platformer, so they got the chance to make a kart racer instead. This was perfect, as the developers had reportedly been playing a lot of Mario Kart, so got to make a kart racer of their own. As well as that, Sony got another Crash game that took a bite out of the versatile plumber's very big pie. If you think about it, the Crash series is perfect for a kart racer. It's a great series full of lovable characters to create a roster from, and interesting locations to take tracks from. It came out September 1999 in North America, and December of the same year in Europe and Japan. It generated $300 million. That's $300 million before I was even born. That amount is astronomical to me. I'm surprised they're able to pull it off. Most people assume this game's a Mario Kart clone. The game's mechanics though make it very different from Mario Kart. Allow me to go through the gameplay of this game slowly so you understand how this is different from Mario Kart. This game relied on a skill-based drift system. As you drift, you see the meter in the bottom right fill up. You can boost up to 3 times in one set. Each time you drifted, the boost got longer. If you also press the boost button, the closer the meter got to the end, the drift would last longer. This required more skill to pull off, because if you hit a wall or miss a button input, you lose your boost. This game had also great stuff set apart from Mario Kart, like Crash series inspired items, hitting crates to get your items, collecting Wumpa Fruit along the track. Wumpa Fruit also had a big part to play in this game. The more you had, the higher your top speed would go, with a max of 10 Wumpa Fruit. If you had 10 Wumpa Fruit, your items will become a lot more effective. There were many modes in this game as well. There was an arcade mode where you do expedition races and Grand Prix, a time trial mode, a battle mode which in retrospect was a lot like Mario Kart's battle mode, and an adventure mode. So let's like usual go take a look at the story of this game. Naughty Dog wanted to kill off Crash for this game. This is why they made the craziest, most unbelievable story yet, and that's a big statement to fill because the third game had time travel. The story takes place during a race between Crash, Coco, and Cortex. An alien by the name of Nitrous Oxide sends a message to Earth. He intends to take over the planet and turn it into an intergalactic kart park. The only way to save the planet is to beat him in a race. Naughty Dog thought nobody would believe in Alien and that people would just lose interest in Crash. This plan actually backfired and Nitrous Oxide became a popular villain and recurred in later games in the series. With the successful racing game under their belt, it seemed like Crash was destined for great things, but unfortunately, this is when everything crashed. Universal created the middleman position with the Crash Bandicoot series. Sony published the game, Universal collected a profit, and very little went to Naughty Dog. This made everyone's favourite relationship killer. Naughty Dog. Sony.
Wash socks. What a beautiful day it is. What is that delicious smell? Oh, I know. It's tension. And it has nothing to do with me. I have never felt so safe.
The best way to make games was for Sony to do the publishing and then Naughty Dog to do the production in-house by themselves and leave Universal behind. They severed ties with Universal and Crash. This led to the creation of Jak and Daxter, and Naughty Dog becoming a subsidiary of Sony Computer Entertainment.
Thank my lucky stars that we made the decision, hard as it was, to walk away from an absolute superstar and start something new.
Sony still wanted Crash games, so Universal had to scramble to find a new producer. This is when Traveler's Tales entered the scenes. After Eurocom made a mediocre party game, people were ready for the next platformer to go back to the original formula. Unfortunately, this is actually what nobody wanted. This game was originally going to be headed by Mark Cerny. He wanted to make a 3D open-world Crash game. Development started in early 2000. Then, like usual, Universal played a dick move and made Crash their mascot instead of Sony's. They also broke Sony's exclusivity over Crash and ported the game to the GameCube and Xbox. This made Sony, and as a result, Cerny, their ties with Universal. The new developers were given 12 months, which in reality is an unreachable deadline, and having to start from scratch now that Cerny wasn't a part of the project. Wrath of Cortex released in October in North America, November in Europe, and then December in Japan. This game's story takes place after Crash Bandicoot 3. Uka Uka is furious they failed to stop Crash yet again, and the villains are creating a new plan to stop Crash. Engine accidentally spills the beans about Cortex's new invention, a mutated Bandicoot that correctly went through the Evolve array. It has incredible strength, and Uka Uka decides to power it with the elemental masks. The mutated Bandicoot Crunch poses a serious threat which Crash and Coco have to stop. Once Crash stops Cortex for good, the villains lose control over Crunch, and he joins Crash and Coco, becoming the Knuckles the Echidna of their trio. The game ends with Cortex and Uka Uka on an iceberg in the middle of nowhere. Like Crash 2 and 3, Wrath of Cortex uses warp rooms, allowing you to tackle the levels in any order you want. You find crystals and gems, and like usual, you collect all the gems to get your secret ending where Crunch joins the group, and this game has traditional platforming, vehicle levels where you play as Coco like Crash 3, and it's going to be a problem if improvements were made to the game. But there wasn't. Some of the power-ups are useless, like being able to tiptoe over Nitro crates. So it's that Coco's physics weren't programmed that well. Coco's jumps are very hard to land, and she gets a kick attack which replaces her spin. Her kick is incredibly hard to land, so some levels of Coco's are really hard to get. Getting gems in other levels is impossible. Sometimes if you miss one box, it's actually impossible to go back and get it, adding to the frustration of 100%ing this game. Although, I don't really need to go through it anymore because just look online about Wrath of Cortex and you'll see how difficult this game was. Crash Nitro Kart was the second kart racing game made for the Crash Bandicoot series. Released on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. This game was intended to be a successor to Crash Team Racing, but then it wasn't, and it's actually not that good of a game. CNK plays a lot like CTR, keeping a lot of what that made that game great, like the drift boost, the shortcuts, the character types, and so on. It added stuff like a boost. If you jump off a ramp, you'll get a boost depending on how much airtime you got. They also had anti-gravity tracks, which was a full few years before Mario Kart 8 did them themselves. As well as that, they also brought back all the modes like the arcade mode, the adventure mode, and the battle mode that made CTR so good. So what's the problem with it? Well, this game is riddled with glitches. You'll often fall through the floor, and that's not what you want to happen during a kart racer. As well as that, there's no sense of speed in this game. Also, the CPU levels are like really easy, until you reach the final boss of adventure mode when it is like soul-crushingly difficult. It's like a difficulty spike that came out of nowhere. Alright, let's cover the story mode and get this game over with. Crash, Coco, and Crunch are abducted by an alien named Emperor Velo. They shortly find out after the same happened to Cortex, Engine, and Tiny Tiger. You have to race against Velo or he will just flat out destroy Earth. Yeah, not like Nitrous Oxide who was going to make Kurt a car park. But no, you actually have to win or else he'll destroy Earth. So shortly after that you choose who you want to race as and progress through the story. It has a similar progression system to CTR, and this game actually has two endings depending on if you play as a member of Team Bandicoot or a member of Team Cortex. You play as the Bandicoots, and if you play as Team Cortex.
You did good out there.
Go away, you filthy clown.
In the Bandicoot ending, you actually end up going home. But in the villain ending, you actually get sent to another planet where Tiny Tiger actually becomes the king of that planet to Cortex's dismay, which is actually a pretty funny ending, all things considered.
Tiny, you buffoon!
Crash Twinsanity released on the PS2 in North America on September 2004, released in October 2004 in Europe and November 2004 in Japan. This game was a big change for the series. Up until now, Crash had only been known for hallway-like platformers. This game was a fully 3D open world. Despite the critics giving this game generally positive reviews, the fan base was 50-50 split on whether this was a good game or not. Half the game considered this a great game and half of it didn't like it. I personally am one of those people who like Crash Bandicoot for its differences, as well as that the humor and writing are amazing in this game.
The check bounced! Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish?
Crash and Cortex, I don't know whether to kiss you or kill you!
Ladies? Excuse me, madam. Are those real? Mother?
Crash Twinsanity is the third worst selling Crash game. It's third only after two games I'm not going to bring up in this video because this is my channel, I lay out my videos the way I want. In this game you play as Crash again, and you retain all your abilities from Crash 2 and 3. Well, almost all your abilities. This game is unique because you also get to play as Dr. Cortex. In this game he uses his ray gun to shoot at enemies from afar. You also play as him and Crash fighting over a power crystal. While you are doing that, you can use Cortex cleverly to throw him far away to solve puzzles, flip switches, participate in dual plane platforming, and there's also pipe roll.
Just evil scientist in the world! Stuck in a pipe. How could things get any worse?
That's not all, you also get to play as Cortex's...
My daughter, niece!
Her name is Nina Cortex. She has grapple hook hands that allow you to do specific platforming, and she also can spin as well, just like Crash and Coco. This game takes place 3 years after the events of Wrath of Cortex. The game starts off with you seeing Cortex and Uka Uka frozen in a giant iceberg. Cortex somehow breaks free, which we don't actually see in-game how he breaks free. But either way, he breaks free and is now able to start plotting his next plan to kill Crash. Cortex is paralyzes Coco with her stun gun so that he can steal her clothes and dress up as her. Yeah, this is an interesting look you got going, Cortex. Okay, now how did Crash fall for this? Okay, I get that Crash is meant to be an idiot, but look at him. This is a fully grown yellow man who's dressed in a blonde wig trying to desperately cling on to the 90s. After Cortex totally failing miserably once again, and after some kind of hilarious fighting and... Okay, we don't talk about this. If you couldn't tell, Cortex is not the villain of this game. After the hilarious fighting between Crash and Cortex, the real villains of this game show up. Spoiler alert for Crash Bandicoot, but these powers are 2 powers that Cortex had as a kid. These powers were the first guinea pigs for his working Evolvo Ray that we see in Crash 1. The Evolvo Ray mutated their minds and now they're evil geniuses. These 2 birds are intelligent as Dr. Eggy over here. For the first time ever, Crash and Cortex have to work together to stop a mutual evil. Once the game ends, it's revealed that Cortex was actually plotting to kill Crash all along at the very end. But As usual, you can tell how this went.
Where am I? What is this?
I'm kinda sad Crash Twinsanity didn't resonate with as much fans as it did with me. This game tried so many unique things and it just seemed to miss the mark for half the fan base, which is sad because this is a genuinely really funny and hilarious game that could have done great things, but the main problem of this game is that the development time was cut short. The actual lines in Crash Bandicoot implied that the development team wanted to do more of this game, but they just couldn't and ran out of time, so they had to cut the game short and cut corners in the development process, which led to glitches which fans dislike about this game. Crash Tag Team Racing was the final racing game, not counting mobile ports. This was released on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. Now before you jump to conclusions, this game is actually quite different to CTR and CNK, and I'm going to explain how now. Firstly, this game was made by Radical Entertainment, known for their amazing work on the game Simpsons Hit and Run. The two games even reference each other.
This game sucks!
Oh, this video game sucks!
The main way the gameplay of this kart racer differs between CTR and CNK is the clash mechanic. During a race, you can clash with any other racer and take on a Mario Kart double dash approach with one person driving and one person using items. Except in this game you don't have items. You have guns you can gun down the other racers with.
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside and walk for dear life. Do you remember me? Capture you and set you free. I am all of me.
In this game, you win races to collect power crystals and coins. But SL, I hear you ask. What if I suck at the races? Well, that's okay, because this game is also half platformer. You can use this 3D open world to explore, find costumes, and find death animations, which are now a collectible. These help you buy and find power crystals. So why are we trying to find power crystals? Well, for the story, of course, you idiot. This game's story starts off with Crash, Coco, and Crunch trying to escape Cortex, Nina, and Engine. They both crash into a theme park which is run by Von Clutch and his employee Pasadena Opossum. Yes, they actually made her name Opossum because the O at the beginning of Possum is silent. I think that's just genius. Von Clutch creates a deal with us. If we collect all the power gems and restore power to the park, he will give us the deeds. The Bandicoots want to win to return the park to Von Clutch, while the scientists want to take it over because it will be the perfect evil base. In this game, you go from park to park searching for coins and power crystals. You accept missions to unlock new racers from all the other characters in the hub world. When you complete their missions, you can now play as them in the races. Even if you've stuck at both the racing and platforming, there are minigames you can play, like the SNES Duck Hunt ripoff and bowling. Yeah, there are actually bowling and duck hunt minigames in this game, it's amazing. Despite the fact that I love this game so much, I can understand why people don't like it. The clash mechanic kinda takes all the challenge out of racing if you power with a powerful gun. The next two games we're going to talk about are what officially start Crash's 10-year hiatus. After Radical did such good work on Crash Tag Team Racing, they were hired to make the next two games. And there's a reason kart games are their forte. This game was released in October worldwide, despite it being on different weeks in October. Surprisingly enough, this game only came to North America and Europe. For Japanese Crash fans, Tag Team Racing was the last Crash game for a long time. And thinking about Titans and Mind Over Mutant? Well, I wish I was a Japanese Crash fan. Crash to Titans is a beat 'em up, where Crash, or whoever this guy is, because this is not the Crash I know, or the Coco I know, or the Crunch I know, or the... Oh, okay, Aku, you look okay. Oh, you two are not! Due to Coco's intellect, she is kidnapped by the scientists. The point of this game is to fight these creatures and progress through an open world to save Coco. And Crunch, well, he's just gonna chill. Thank you guys. I know, I'm so funny. Thank you so much. This game is so simplistic. You just mash the spin, or the punch button to win. There is virtually no challenge in this game. I know the Crash games are meant to be for kids, but so was the N.SaneTrilogy, and it was never this mind-numbingly easy. All you do in this game is go from chapter to chapter, killing enemies for no point. The other point of this game's combat is to jack enemies. Why did they name it this? Eventually, you reach the end and save Coco, but that is literally all this game had to offer. Radical were unfortunately asked to make 2 games, so make a Titan sequel. In this game, the residents of Wumpa Island get a new headset made by this man who is totally not Cortex and totally not Embryo. Who, can I just bring up, is back after being betrayed in Crash Bandicoot 2 by Cortex, but... okay, whatever, I guess. This headset, after long enough on your head, turns the wearers into mutant slaves. So Crash and Aku Aku need to set off to save Wumpa Island inhabitants from this mind control. This is the part of each game where I literally talk about gameplay, but it is literally the exact same game as Titans. It is literally the exact same game. You just mash spin, you mash jump, and ta-da! You won! Hooray! Okay, I'll give some credit to Mind Over Mutant. This game's cutscenes are actually very comedic. Each story arc has its own style of animation. It goes from puppet shows to black and white cartoons to anime to South Park inspired. Aw, okay, this Crash is actually adorable. But apart from the cutscenes, that's all there is to this game, but I figured, instead of explaining to you how good the cutscenes are in this game, I should just show you, so consider this the best moments of Crash Mind Over Mutant's cutscenes. And roll the clips!
Stare and dream! Stare and dream!
Punch him in the throat.
Not my throat! I need that for swallowing!
There was a piece of lettuce in the urinal. Who eats a sandwich while going to the bathroom? Seriously.
Yes, it is I, Embryo. My name sounds like fetus.
After Mind Over Mutant, Crash's 10-year hiatus began. Crash wasn't seen for another 10 years, except for an appearance in Skylanders. But then, the original trilogy got remade and looked better than ever. Then CTR got a remake and was better than ever. All the Crash fans knew what was coming, and I was right there with everyone, waiting. Me and my friend were together, there, watching Summer's Game Fest. And that's when it happened. Crash Bandicoot 4, an official Crash game carrying off the original trilogy, was announced. This game was made by Toys for Bob and was a true return to form instead of whatever this was. This game's story takes place after Crash Bandicoot 3's true ending. Cortex, Entropy, and Uka Uka have grown up after being sent to the past in their babies form. Uka Uka and Entropy are trying to find a way out of wherever they were sent to. Uka Uka uses up so much power it actually knocks them out. Cortex and Entropy abandon Uka Uka and wherever they are. Aku Aku senses something wrong with the universe, so wakes up Crash. After a bit of adventuring, they meet the first mouse, Lani Loli. He requests Crash and Coco's help in finding his brothers and sisters to stop Cortex. When Cortex actually gets beaten in the story, Entropy actually betrays Cortex, so he joins up with Crash and Coco. During the adventure, you also meet Tawna and Dingodile, and they also join your group, at least from the sidelines. Then, the unthinkable happened. Cortex steals Kapunawa and plans to go back in time to before he made Crash, and plans to erase him out of existence. I love this storyline so much. It's so believable in this. It's also the perfect way to close off a story that has time travel meddled into it. So quick spoiler alert for Crash Bandicoot 4. But Crash and Coco going back in time is actually what made Crash come out an idiot at the beginning of Crash Bandicoot 1, so this series just came in full circle. This game is an honest to goodness return to form for the Crash Bandicoot franchise. This game is a 3D hallway designed platformer game. You get to play as Crash in most of the levels, and any level you can play in Crash, you can play as Coco for, which is an amazing addition. You also get levels where you get to play as Tawna, Dingodile, and Cortex, all with their unique gameplay styles. Tawna has a whip and zip line. Cortex has a ray gun which you can use to change the form of enemies, and Dingodile's flamethrower has been exchanged for a vacuum pack. In terms of Crash and Coco's gameplay, you keep all your abilities from Crash Bandicoot 3 except for... In this game, the only difference is your slide jump. In this game, you slide into a jump, so you keep your distance but not your momentum. But for the level design of this game, it's actually pretty fitting. So you think with the great gameplay, amazing fan receptions, and just the additions they added to the gameplay, you'd think this would be a great game, right? And it is. It's 100% my favorite Crash game. Until you start going for 100%. The only problem with this game is the amount of collectibles. This game has 6 gems in each level. 3 for getting up to 80% of the Wumpa Fruit, 1 for breaking all the boxes, 1 hidden gem, and 1 for dying less than 3 times. The boxes are so well hidden in this game, you're not going to find them without a guide. As well as that, there are insanely perfect relics, where you have to get all the gems except for the hidden without dying once. As well as that, finding the hidden colored gems are so much more difficult in this game. I've been playing Crash since I was 5 years old and I still haven't 100% of this game, and I got it at launch day. Despite that though, if you don't go for 100%, this is the best Crash game we have had ever. So Crash Bandicoot is finally back. I guess what I meant to say is, thank you to all you Crash fans who bought Crash 4. Because we've shown Activision that people still care about Crash. Even if the lead developer of Toys for Bob was moved over to Call of Duty, we've shown Activision that we still care about Crash, so even if you've been playing since you were 5 years old like I am, or if you've just got Crash 4 because you heard it was a good game, thank you, because you showed Activision that we care about Crash, and I see a Crash 5 in the future. The video may be over, but I just want to talk to you guys for a quick minute. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. This is something I've wanted to make for a while for Crash and other franchises, so expect more of this, I guess video style in the future. This is definitely new and unique for my channel and something I want to try out, so seriously, everyone who clicked on this, thank you so much, it means a lot to me. I want to give a quick thank you to my buddy Edarin, who helped me learn how to use Audacity, which is what I use to record the audio for this video, so a big thank you to him, and you guys should totally go check him out. I'll leave his channel in the description for you guys. I mainly wanted to make this video because I just wanted to talk about Crash in some way, and I felt like if I did it during just one of my live streams, it would be completely unplanned, and I wanted to make it a bit more structured, but also I wanted to inform people about Crash's, at least a brief bit about their development history and just if each game is good or bad, so that's kind of the purpose behind this video. But seriously, thank you to everyone who clicked on this. Please like and share this. I would really appreciate if this video started to take off, because I put months of effort into this and I think I pulled it off. So finally, thank you all so much for clicking on this video. If you have any ideas on stuff you want me to make videos like this on in the future, please let me know. But with that out of the way, it's goodbye from me. See you guys.